Hello, today you will find 3 incredible stories from the life of our subscribers. Watch to the end because there will be the most interesting. Pleasant viewing. The first story. A cheating wife took the business away from her husband's boss. I got Julia, my neighbor on the floor, to work at our firm. We weren't friends. I was 6 years older than her, but our mothers were neighbors. And with Julia, we were just on good terms. She quickly and easily joined the team. Even the boss paid attention to her. And the attention was paid to a young, beautiful, intelligent, and even blonde. Her beauty was combined with iron character, will, vindictiveness, and vindictiveness. By all the laws of the genre, the chief was married, but Julia was not the kind who loses his luck. She became the chief's mistress with the long-range goal of becoming his wife in the future. She was not embarrassed by the fact that the chief had a third wife, and that he himself did not miss a single skirt. Julia said that she would be the last wife of this womanizer, as she is well-versed in male psychology and can not only beautifully dress. The romance was booming. Julia became the second person at the firm. And it must be said, she got the hang of it very quickly and got into everything. Really was very smart, cunning, and had a supernatural intuition. Her practical advice helped the chief to conduct business perfectly. She always found a way out of any difficult situations. And after the story about the liquidation of one of our companies, Olia's credibility in the eyes of the chief skyrocketed. She once guided a commercial director to the truth, brought his criminal activity, so to speak, to the chief, because of which the firm incurred losses. He signed contracts with firm suppliers, and not the best ones, for bribes, and had to pay more. The commercial director was disgraced and kicked out. The chief was overjoyed and could not even step without Julia. Gradually, the blonde beauty got her hands on everything at the firm. Without her boss did not decide anything by himself. Forgot about the love affairs, he needed only Julia, and she ran her claws deeper and deeper into him. Chief grew cold to his wife, although she was very pretty, but shallow and strongly lost to Julie's mind. Chief's wife found out about his amorous affairs. A scandal was brewing, and she smelled a divorce. Chief worried because his wife could claim her share of his property, and then Julia came to the chief's aid. I don't know how she managed to convince the chief, but he transferred or sold almost all of his business to her. Gradually, she got her hands on the company's accounts as well. Julia did it long before his family scandals. After the divorce, the chief's wife got literally crumbs. A happy and joyful boss told her that he was now free and ready to marry her. But Julia was in no hurry to marry, which really upset the single chief. She told him that in fact nothing has changed. They are still lovers, only now she is the boss and his lover. This story affected me too. I got my bonus. Julia promoted me. My salary was higher, of course. She said it was her gratitude to me for getting her the job. Second story. A guy decided to get back at me in this original way. 5 years ago, I met a guy, started hanging out with him to get over my first love. Since we broke up, I had no idea that someone would replace him for me. I am Tatar myself. When I started communicating with a new guy, I was very interested in him. His laughter and his voice drove me crazy. I live in Moscow with my family. When I went to my home country in summer, we met by chance. He is also of my nationality. I have always been attracted to literate and educated guys. He was one of those. He had the upbringing, the mind, the character. I myself am very principled, and I have never been attracted to guys who were willing to do anything for me and declare their love. Don't get me wrong. When we started communicating, I was very interested in him. I never called or wrote to him first. He called every day. We talked for hours. There was always something to talk about, and we often argued. He used to say that I was the meanest and most capricious of all the girls he knew. We talked like that for 3 months over the summer. Not a day went by that he didn't call, offered me a serious relationship. I refused as my pride wouldn't let me say yes, even though I really wanted to. I was afraid of falling in love with him and was always rude and mean to him. He tolerated all my whims. I felt in my heart that he was very interested in me and that he was also afraid of falling in love with me. I didn't trust him. I thought he was a womanizer and he didn't trust me, but we kept in touch. Then I came back to Moscow. He kept calling me, and I never gave him a reason to think I was interested in him, even for a minute. I pretended that I didn't care about him. I answered rudely, but he kept calling. We chatted around the clock. I was so afraid of falling in love, so used to this harmful guy, that I didn't admit it to myself. I was flying in the clouds every day, remembering his every word, his laughter. In the end, we had a big quarrel with him and stopped communicating. Then a couple of months later, he got my number again and started again. He said that I was very mean and rude. No matter how rude I was, he kept calling me. I realized that I was falling in love up to my ears and was even more rude so he wouldn't guess. Besides him, I was in touch with another guy. He loves me very much, and I know it, but I don't love him. He is just my own man. After that, we fought again and finally stopped communicating through my fault. I just pissed him off, and so it's been 2 years since we got in touch. I started communicating with a guy who loves me. I got used to him, but it was not love. During these 2 years, I remembered that hurtful one. I was waiting for him to show up in my life again, as I had even forgotten about my first love when I met him. I have never had that kind of emotion in my life with anyone else in a relationship. This was a guy I could fall madly in love with, as it had been 2 years. I was no longer hopeful and stopped remembering that beautiful interaction. Then there were rumors that I was getting married to the guy I started hanging out with. I thought about it, whether to marry him or not. He was calling me to get married. I was finally undecided. And at that point, he showed up in my life again when I was almost getting married. He called me. What I felt words just can't express. We talked for a very long time. He said that he had been told that I was getting married, that there was a guy who had wanted to get in touch with me for a long time. And it stopped him, but eventually he made up his mind. He remembered everything about me, which surprised me myself. He even remembered what my favorite food was, my habits, every little thing about me. I also didn't trust him completely. I felt that this narcissistic mean guy wanted to get back at me for being so rude to him then, and these thoughts tormented me too. But I answered his calls anyway. He called every day. We talked for hours. He said that no one would marry me with my temperament, that I was as bad as I was, and that I still was, and we continued to argue. But I felt in my heart that it wouldn't last, that it would be over. I enjoyed this moment, started thinking about him again. The man I was going to marry stopped communicating as much as I had before this. It was the most beautiful communication. I also continued to be naughty, and he tolerated me. I answered his calls and texts. I think he had no idea that I liked him, because I held on so well. So almost a month went by as we talked for hours every day, and he suddenly disappeared. I didn't call or write him. My pride in life wouldn't let me ask him what happened, why he disappeared. Although he was my friend on social networking sites and was often online, I thought, therefore, came back just to get back at me. So past 2 weeks, when I puzzled over not understanding what is happening, as disappear without reason, he was not the habit, and find out I also did not. He was well aware of my character, that even if he never contacted me, that I would not even ask him why. And 2 weeks later, I accidentally found out through an acquaintance that he had gotten married. Turns out he contacted me on the eve of his wedding. when the wedding was already scheduled and was due in a month. That day was the worst day of my life. I didn't even expect myself to react so badly to it. You could tell he buried me alive with this act. I don't even know what hurt me more, the wedding itself or my ego. I lost my appetite. I couldn't sleep or eat. I did not show anyone what was going on in my heart. I kept it all to myself. I cried at night. I could not come to terms with it. To my friends and acquaintances, he was just another guy I was killing time with. No one even guessed that I was interested in him. I really blame myself for falling for it and answering his calls. Marry yourself. Why on the eve of his wedding, after more than 2 years to touch me, should a man who has a wedding on the horizon get involved with someone else? In my opinion, he should have been thinking only about his wedding, and he shouldn't have cared about other girls. He has a fiancée, a wedding, and he talks to me for hours. I didn't even let him disconnect. I asked him to wait every time. Would a happy man act like that? I have only one question. Why did he have to do this? He showed up in my life again and completely changed my life, my thoughts. It's just killing me. I'm just going crazy. I really care about other people's opinions. What do you think after all this time he showed up in my life again on the eve of my wedding? Told me I was so looking for you. They told me you were getting married, so I didn't get involved. Was it all made up by him? Were they just empty words? I care about what the guys have to say too. Guys seem to me to be better able to answer that question. Why do you think he did it? Did he do it to get back at me, or was he really in love with me? Did he feel something for me, or was he just laughing? Although I could sense that he couldn't enjoy being with me. I certainly haven't moved on yet, but this is already a closed page of my life. Expect him to divorce again, etc. in no way, even if he did divorce me. Now I definitely would not look at his side. I just want to know the opinion of others. The third story, the strange beginning of our relationship. I have a typical problem. I like a womanizer, and on top of that he has a girlfriend that he supposedly loves her. I got caught. It's just that I always told myself that I would never be with a womanizer. I wouldn't let that happen. Yeah, I'll tell you, he's like a magnet, pulling me in and pulling me in. I want him horribly. I can't control myself. My brain dies when he's around. We work in the same company. He's always around. I see him all the time. I look at him. I drool. And when I'm around, he's always hugging me, seducing me and provoking me. And I can't do anything about it. Before, I didn't know he had a girlfriend and flirted with him openly. We were like a couple, hugging, kissing, smiling, etc. One night we were cuddling, and I couldn't resist. I wanted to kiss him, and he didn't respond and pulled away. Why didn't he kiss me? I don't even know. I told him that no one had ever turned me down, and he just smiled mysteriously. I freaked out and left. I was angry, even cried a little, because I was really unlucky in love. He texted me that I supposedly needed to go into Skype and talk about something, but I just went to sleep. I woke up, 2 missed calls on my cell phone. Then I told my friend. She gave me advice not to ignore him completely abruptly, but to step back a little bit, like I don't care, I'm not hooked on it. So I did. He wanted to talk to me, asked if I was offended, but I said I was fine. A day went by. I went to his Facebook page through my second account. Saw that he was with a beautiful girl in a serious relationship, different pics with her. It was offensive. The weekend passed. I told him that our flirting was over and I was no longer interested. He smiled and said he didn't care either. Afterwards, he took to throwing water on me, and we ran back and forth like children. Despite the fact that it's not difficult to buy a bouquet in Moscow, he has never once given me flowers. Although maybe it's too early. We almost did not communicate this week. I was angry, and if he just hit on me. I yelled and swore a lot, and he smiled and that's it. He annoys me wildly, and at the same time, I feel very hard and sad without him. Yesterday, I couldn't take it anymore and told him I wanted a serious relationship with him. He replied that he didn't mind going out with me either. It was so great. I don't know what's in his head. He's quiet. He doesn't talk about serious things, and it makes me even more nervous. And when he smiles, I melt and can't think about anything. I can't forget him. I see him all the time at school. What to do with him?